people like that we're
Okay.
being consistent too.
Yep.
So
Yep. Right. And but sometimes I know it's still streaming, it's not ready, but I think it's still recording. We have to also be unpredictable to a certain extent. I've had 3 videos removed from YouTube this week. They were my political theater reports, and that's on the video here. Okay, so I have to. There we go. I had to stop. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the GoldFish Report. I'm your host, Louisa, host and researcher, Louisa. Today is Thursday, July 9th, 2020. This is GoldFish Report number 521. This is our series, Food for the Soul, and we're so glad that you're here to join us for this, because this is really what we need right now. We need to realize that the chaos and insanity in the world is driving us all out of whack, and we need to really focus on what's important. And joining me to do this and to discuss this with everybody is a wonderful dynamic duo, a team who I love immensely and who I'm so happy to have back on the GoldFish Report, Dr. and Vicki Werner. Let me just say, Scott, welcome back. Good to see you, Scott.
thank you. It's good to be here.
And Vicki
Better to
is
be seen than 6 feet under. So
a dirt nap. Okay, and Vicki, so good to see you. Lovely steel magnolia that you are. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Good to see you,
so
Vicki.
much. Glad to be here.
Vicki is indeed one of our inductees in our GoldFish Report Steel Magnolias series. So she's an amazing woman, and that's why I'm so happy to present both of these amazing people to you today. And they are truly life coaches. And what they really are here to talk about today is something that we've all heard about, but we just need to hear it again. And we need to hear it a little differently. Maybe we need to hear something different about it. This is about the science of manifestation and creating the life that you want, focusing your intention, and all kinds of things. Because we've heard the phrase, attention and energy flows where attention goes. And I think if Nikola Tesla was here and we were allowed to really see those documents, we would learn so much more about who and what we truly are and what we're capable of doing. So let me start by saying, hi to everybody. I want to say hello. This is live stream, so I will occasionally break away and say hello to people in the live chat. Hi, goldfishes. We're all goldfishes, right?
Yay!
So thank you everyone in the live chat and for people who are viewing. So let's get started. We're talking about, it seems so simple, Vicki. Let me just start with Vicki, ladies first. Let's just start with Vicki. It seems so simple, right? Oh, just think positive and, you'll attract positivity to you. But it's just not that simple. Why do we have why do we struggle with this? Because, we've heard it from so many places that we can manifest. We are the creators of our own life, but we have self-sabotage. What's going on?
Well, I think it's always healthy just to break down that we all have the same baseline so that we can work off of that. A few things that I think most people are familiar with is 95% of our 95% of who we are is in the subconscious program. So 95% of us, or our day, if we break it down to that, 95% of our day is unconscious. And we get in these habits and these patterns. We have the same thoughts, the same emotions, we meet the same people, we have the same behaviors, and we create this energy flowing throughout our day that very seldom shifts. And when it does shift, our mind is still usually addicted to an experience that happened in the past. And when we start thinking about our future, it's usually from a space of separation, a space of lack, a space of anxiety, where we're not in harmony emotionally. So let's start there. We have 5% of 5% of our day that we're actually conscious. This is the average person. And that means most of us, that we tend to scatter our attention throughout the day. We become very, very fragmented. One of the ways that shows up, and I know that every single person listening to this is as guilty as you or I, that we have these smartphones that has multiple apps, and we click on one app, we scroll for 20 seconds, or we see an email. And if we see an email that's too long, we can't read right now, we close it down and open another app. And then we scroll a couple of times, we see a YouTube video that's more than a couple of seconds, we close it down because we cannot give that much attention to one thing. And it's scientifically shown that the average person really struggles with attention. We can hold attention approximately 7 to 10 seconds. And we think, oh no, I can hold my attention much longer. Well, go ahead and try.
That's
And then you'll get a notification. That notifications drive me insane because I'll be typing away and all of a sudden this notification comes up and you get distracted and oh my gosh, you know, everything they're doing is mind control.
So we just segued a little bit.
Isn't that about the isn't that about the
I just had to put that in there.
No, but it's absolutely true because I mean, isn't, you know, that the length of the attention span of the goldfish as well?
Yeah.
About 7. So if we all become goldfish, is that what you're saying?
Well, I think
is that why this is called the Goldfish Report?
Well, if we're going to be goldfish, we're going to be all jumping into a bigger bowl of consciousness. That's where I'm at on that. So as far as attention, we are energetic beings. It's fact that we're more energy than mass. However, our attention is so hyper scattered. And if we break it down, it's something that we can all associate with. Where's your radio receiver? If we're on one radio station and we got a clear dial and we got ourselves aligned with that radio station, the music comes in very clearly. But if we use that as how we show up in the world, we're going like this with our radio dial all day long. And we'll focus here and then focus here and focus here, and we don't get a clear receiver. And so we think that all you have to do is put a picture on a vision board, or you have a desire for something, and we don't manifest from something that we want. We manifest from something that we are. It's going to be because we're only able to create at the vibrational frequency of what we are. And then why do we have all of this sensory experience, all of our sight and our smell and our touch and our taste and hearing and all of those experiences? What was the purpose of that? Well, first of all, to get us anchored into our 3D reality, into this physical reality. We're able to experience that through our senses. And so how do we experience what we want to create? Through our senses. And so the more that we align our thoughts and our emotions that are the driving point, those are the train that takes us in the direction of where we're going. And it's where our energy is shifting via our thoughts and via our emotions. And then we integrate these sensory where we can feel it and we can see it and we can just have the taste of that food we want to create, or the sensation that we're trying to create. We are aligning the radio frequency. We're aligning it so that it's a direct channel. And when we are too scattered, when we are emotionally engaged in our past, we become emotionally addicted to our past. And when we have unresolved experiences, it constantly is in our emotional state. And especially if it's one that's an emotional charge and we don't have resolution, we spend an enormous amount of our attention rehashing and refocusing in our mind, and our body gets more agitated. We start sweating, we start having that sympathetic nervous response. And the second we wake up, the whole narrative starts over again of something that we don't want. But how much of our attention is what we don't want? Well, the problem with that is we haven't engaged in the experience before. So we don't know we don't have a chemical response for that experience. And that's where the magic is possible in the human experience. That's what we came to magnify, is our ability to hold attention and our ability to create from our senses something that we haven't had before. And that's where we become the ultimate creators.
Okay. Let me just go over. You said so much there. That was a huge amount, but there were gems in there, pearls that I'm going to pull out.
Lots of gems.
Sounds like sensory overload, Scott. It looks like, I mean, now we can maybe understand a little bit what autistic kids go through, where they're so inundated with their senses are so overwhelmed and overloaded. And as Vicki just said, that just, it automatically triggers that sympathetic response. And of course, then you see their behavior problems as a result of that. But we're almost forcing this, creating an autistic society of ourselves. How many people have ADHD? And, just because we are now training ourselves with what Scott said, this is the mind control aspect, Scott, that what you're just talking about. It's by design, isn't it, Scott?
Oh, I tell you, the more that I have studied my whole life, the whole, MK Ultra, the CIA, all of these things and their ability to manipulate our thoughts. And that's the problem. We're not in control of our thoughts. We are being controlled through our thoughts and through every sensory thing we are receiving. And so now it's time to take our minds back.
True.
Because let me tell you, where your energy goes, that we're feeding the beast. And we need to bring back the power to us, we the people, because we are the creators. We don't want to give all our creative energy to everybody else. We need to bring it back into alignment with the love of God.
What you just said is very profound, because you just explained how they're doing it. So through the overload of devices and apps and things that you were discussing, and this constant
Barrage.
I would say barrage, but interruption of our attention and focus. So this constant, I would say, a fracturing of our attention throughout the day.
That's exactly what it is. It's fracturing our attention.
And Scott is saying that this is how it's feeding the beast. So they're designing us to feed their energetic system and to manifest for them. This is exactly the mechanism. We're just like little battery generators that they manipulate us, and we produce for them what they want, whoever they are. Well, not going to really get into that too much today, but we know that there's forces that exist that are doing this, whatever those forces are. You also said 5% of our day we are actually focused. That's huge, Vicki. That's sad. That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad.
Yeah. And I would say let's say somebody is new on the self-development and they went to a Tony Robbins experience, or they went to some motivational speaker. I'll use this as an example. How many of us saw a documentary or we attended a live event and there was a lot of hype and a lot, music's playing, because we know music moves energy. That's why they use this music. They play it loud so we can become aligned with that music and that pumped up experience. And so we get excited, we get joyful, and then we go to these experiences. If you're with your friend, you turn to your friend and go, oh, I'm totally going to do that. That's amazing. And you think you're going to remember it. You don't even feel like you need to take notes, because you're so present in that experience, and you just feel like you're going to just change everything. And then you get home and you have a picture of a car that you've been wanting a car, and you put that on your vision board, and most people will go directly to $1 million. That's their default. When people say, I want more money, if they're making $20,000 or $100,000, the most common default is $1 million or $10 million. And it's so far out there, they're not aligned to it. And so, that language, in order to make money, you have to have money, because you need to be an energetic alignment to that. Well, how do we do that if we're making $20,000? Again, back with our senses. We get on that vision board, we look at it for a few minutes, we're holding a cup of coffee, but we're not emotionally engaged with it. We can't activate that emotion. While we're looking at the picture of the car, we're thinking about that we're late for work. We're thinking about the fight that we had with our spouse the night before. We're thinking about all of those things, and we're not really present with that. And again, we're very scattered and fragmented. Months later, you're just frustrated because nothing happened. But in that approximate 3 days after an event, I think all of us who said, yes, I went to an event, usually the energy will stay present for approximately 3 days. You get hyped and excited. Well, what shifts that energy? What was there in the first place? Why didn't we keep that? Our attention moved on to different things. And so that's a really quick, easy way to understand how we can build up an intensity, but if we don't maintain it, it's going to dissipate. And the same thing happens in our brain. When we create a new synaptic connection, we created a new memory network. We embossed something in the brain momentarily, but if we didn't repeat it or hold our attention on it, within a few hours or days, it's that connection has dissolved and it's as if it wasn't ever there.
True. Now, this vision board idea, this concept is extremely interesting because I guess so. Are you saying that? Okay, so sometimes when you try to manifest something, and it doesn't manifest, it's because you're just not aligned to that yet. You did say that we manifest and create at the vibrational level that we are currently vibrating at. So, is this vision board then to kind of identify where we are in terms of our present frequency, our present vibration, and then to start slowly approximating our way to I guess I would say setting smaller goals until we can build up, because changing, just jumping from one frequency to another it doesn't seem very realistic and doesn't even seem sustainable, as you're saying. It's not sustainable. So let
Well,
me just screen share this image that we were talking about earlier, being that just screen share this chart of which we've spoken about before on the GoldFish Report. Whoops, just lost it. Hold on a second.
That's a good chart, by the way.
It's live. What can I say? I was trying to expand it, make it a little bit bigger so people could see it a little bit more easily on the screen. So if you want to continue talking about it, here it is. Sorry for the interruption there. You can go ahead.
okay, so my biggest feeling about a vision board, it's not the board that matters or the pictures really, other than it's an anchoring point for our attention. And so it helps us. If I were to teach about a vision board, I don't personally use it a lot because but you can use it. There's apps on it. You can put it in your journal. You can put it on the wall. That aspect doesn't matter, but it's one way that helps the human experience to anchor into something. Make that vision board actually have energy that flows, you need a few extra elements other than just the picture. The picture is something that when we can see it in our external world, we can close our eyes and we can see it internally. We activate that. To take that to the next level, you have to align to the emotional state of attainment. And if you don't know what that is, usually it's going to be something of joy, freedom, excitement, but just feel gratitude in that moment. And so most people in that 95% subconscious patterns, we still carry a lot of anger, we carry resentment, we don't have forgiveness, we have a sense of separation, of lack. And so when we put a picture of something that we want, I'll use an example of a new car. We drive down the road and we see a beautiful new car come past us, and we recognize in our body, we don't have that car, somebody else has that car, and I'm separate from that. And we're in a space of separation. And so our emotions are separateness, and subconsciously we remember where we weren't picked to play volleyball at the elementary school. We remember when we went out on a date, they picked, they went with somebody else, and all of this time of separation. And we keep our attention on the separation rather than the creation. And so if we see that picture of what we want to create, we need to engage our emotional state as if it already were, because again, it's not our desires, it's our state of being. And most people, they'll say, well, wake up and first thing in the morning, because the subconscious, there's a bridge between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, first thing in the morning and at the end of the day. Most of us know that. So we'll wake up, we'll stumble in, look at our vision board, and then we'll well, how do I engage the emotion of that? And that's the biggest thing most people are missing. We can see it, and we can think about it. Again, we're usually thinking from a space of separation. So we need to become more heart coherent, more brain coherence. And so we need to follow a few key steps and be in a space of gratitude, be in a space of emotional love and open heart and all of those kind of elements. And then we hold our attention on that vision board, and we don't move our attention in 7 or 10 seconds. We hold our attention and bring in different elements, and we repeat those elements every single day. And we add detail, and the smell of the leather and the joy that we feel, and how we are able to take our kids places, and they, whatever experience you want to create. But we engage the after effect as if we're already there. Now, again, we need to remember time is a third dimensional reality, not a fifth dimensional reality. And so we think that it takes time to get there, and we have to focus on all of this time. Be as if it already was. Move yourself into that new altered state, and keep your energy in that state as long as possible.
Yeah. What it sounds like, energy flows where attention goes. So you're saying a lot there. So we're manifestors. We can physically manifest things. And some of the processes involved in that, from what I understand, it's really like what we're doing is creating a vibrational match, which then increases the probability for serendipity. And when you increase the probability for serendipity, then it's like a synchronization of frequency. And that's what brings the manifestation. Because so what you're saying is, when you're vibrating at a certain frequency, but when you have the emotion, and I don't think you can really vibrate at that frequency if you don't have the emotion behind it. I really don't. Yeah. So you have to, that's kind of, the basis. You have to put emotion behind it, as you're saying, right?
Yeah.
So
energy is emotions is energy in motion. That's the easiest way to understand that.
Yeah. Well, back to your screen share for just a sec, because I want to describe something that's really good on this.
Okay.
Because it shows the colors as well. Now you look down below, it's in infrared, and it goes down into that red. Now the Saint Germain teachings tell us not to wear red. Why? Because it vibrates down in that apathy, guilt, shame, and blame.
Wow.
So when you get up in the higher vibrations, like in the green area, this is even our chakra system. It works through these areas of energy and light. And when we're in the higher vibrations, notice how you get into the violet, the ultraviolet. That's where you need to be in order to bring in stronger energy. Because see, the cone gets bigger as we go up. So the energy actually increases, and the energy to create increases. That's why you don't want to just have the thought without the higher emotion. So that's why we move into those higher echelons, because the actual vibration increases and the frequency increases, and your ability to create increases. Now, when we get distracted, we move out of those higher vibrations of creation and move down into the lower vibrations. And that's why the interruptions, the notifications, all of this stuff is bringing us back down into matter rather than in the higher frequencies of creation. And when we move out of those higher vibrations back down, we are less likely to create what we truly desire.
That's another way of saying that, by the way. When it comes down to the sharp point at the end, that's another way of showing how our physical body and the energy field around our body, that's fact. We all have an energy field that we receive and transmit that's more constricted and confined. And so we tend, when people are in a depressed state or a lower state, think about it, the body language, they tend to constrict their energy, go more in the fetal position. They bring themselves in because their energy field is more constricted. When you raise your attention and raise your energy to a higher energy field, then we come into that we're all one consciousness, we're all connected consciousness, and we feel that expanded love and that expanded joy because our energy field is expanded as we understand creation. We're all part of the grand design.
Yeah, and the viruses enter
Right.
in,
Mhm.
grief, apathy, shame, blame. The viruses can get into our bodies easier when we're down in those lower confined frequencies. And when we raise up, the viruses can't even affect us. So we need to stay in those higher vibratory areas of creation. It keeps us healthier, keeps us happier, makes us into more loving, high-minded beings. And that's where we need to be, is in those higher frequencies. Because when we get down in those lower ones, we get sick, we get tired, we allow those invasive organisms to get into our bodies.
Well, let's take a look at this chart again, because let's just say someone is vibrating at, now look, I mean, let's look at this chart because we have different emotions about different aspects of our life. So which one is our frequency? If we're feeling, despair over our financial situation, but we love our family very much, well, where is it that we actually end up on this chart? You know what I mean?
Well,
So yeah, so because you're saying that's the point of manifestation, is whatever frequency, whichever emotion here we're vibrating at. But we may have, don't we have a combination of these, or how does that work?
Well, yes, we can have a big combination.
Okay.
And before 9/11, we were actually in above neutrality into a willingness to make changes. And then 9/11 happened, brought us down into fear. Let me tell you, the COVID brought us even lower than fear because virus vibrates clear down. And so, the earth right now is vibrating lower than fear. And a lot of people are committing suicide because they have no hope. They have no, they've been brought down into grief, shame, and blame, and, feel like there's nothing they can do. And, putting on the masks is actually a satanic depiction of not being able to speak your own truth even. I get out there and people aren't speaking their truth. They're speaking the truth they're hearing from all of these people telling them, you've got to wear the mask. You've got to confine yourself. You've got to separate yourself. When in fact, we need to be doing the opposite. We need to be expressing our free agency and not giving up our sovereignty.
No, it's true. We're really being challenged big time because there's people, I mean, at the checkout counter in the supermarkets who are assuming authority. They suddenly became cops as they're checking out and, scanning my milk down the aisle or whatever I've got there, and it's down the belt there. And, and I actually had the mask on. I've been doing reports about this. This is really just crazy, right? So I've had the mask on and I just went like this because I had to just give the guy my number so I could get the discounts on whatever was on sale. And he stopped and he's like shouting at me to make sure the mask was up against my nose at all times. I mean, I had it on. I had to let air in. This thing itches me so bad. And it's crazy. And like, it's so triggered me. I talked about it on a report. And then because it's like people are buying into the low vibrational messages of, so let me just ask you something. If somebody is vibrating at these low vibrations, I'm going to screen share this again. Give us an example, please, of what they're going to manifest. Let's say somebody's vibrating at pride, or
then they're going to align themselves to Black Lives Matter very, very quickly. And they have to be the representative. So they're the ones who will post pictures on their Facebook page with their new profile picture will be with their mask, because they're taking one for the team, and they say that they're not selfish, and people are selfish. they're calling people out because they're trying to, from judgment and comparison, they're trying to expand who they are and belittle other people.
Yeah, it's
You
all
know,
about.
they found through studies we need 20 hugs a day. Social distancing doesn't allow you to get any. And they've proven that humans
Thrive on physical touch.
need to interact with each other. We do. We thrive on the physical touching of each other. And, you know, when people have been abused, they don't want to be touched because they feel like they're going to be abused again. And so, you know, we need that love. We need that contact. We need to speak to each other. And it's hard to speak with a mask on. It literally covers our throat chakra and makes it difficult to communicate. And, you know,
I'm sorry. I
oh,
thought
go ahead.
No, go ahead. I thought you were done.
I'm done.
Well, you know, what I think is fascinating is how now we have moved from separation of the masks to now we're normalizing it. And now we're getting ads, sponsored ads. We're getting sponsored ads about the scarf with the mask, that it becomes a fashion statement. And I guarantee that most people in the United States had some level of judgment when they saw someone in the Middle East with their face covered. There was judgment from them, and there was judgment from, if you're not Christian, and you know that these Muslims, and they had this, they're all bad, and ISIS. Most people in the United States who were not educated had that sense of judgment, belittlement, of that kind of feeling, or it's just kind of separation. And now we become it, and now we take this pride and honor that we have to have all these multiple colors. And I know people who are creating ones for missionaries and creating ones for the temple to get married, bride and groom masks and children's masks with all of the colors. We're making it a fashionable experience because people want to make that statement. So pride is a very big one right now.
So that's an interesting example. That's very interesting that you just said that. Let's pick another one, and maybe Vicki can give us another example of, let's see, someone is vibrating in apathy, like, I don't care, I don't care. I don't care about anybody. I don't even care really that much about myself. I don't care. I don't care about helping anybody or doing anything. I just, want everything to come to me, or let someone take care of me. I don't really want to take care of myself. Something, I guess, is that what apathy is? And if someone's vibrating in that, what are they manifesting?
Well, somebody who is in a space of apathy, they've given up hope, and they're not in a space that's creating. They're just kind of in a stagnant hold, and they become very subject to whatever the environment it is. So there's the Newtonian law that our environment, that we have cause and effect, that whatever is out there causes an effect within us. And so we become subject of our environment, and how we feel is based upon how other people treated us, or how what's going on in the outside world. And so you'll hear, like in conversations and relationships, is, you made me feel this way. You made me, you did this, and now thus I feel this way. Well, quantum physics and the new understanding is we cause an effect based upon our emotional state, our thoughts, our vision, and integrating our different senses. We internally are the creators. And so the baseline comes from within and projects out, rather than being subject about our outside environment affecting how we feel within.
And apathy also vibrates in the vibration of suicide. Because when you don't give a shit anymore about your own life, that's when you take it.
Boy,
because there's nothing to look forward to. Apathy's a horrible place to be. And yet, believe it or not, we're in that vibration right now. We're below fear in apathy.
Yeah, the biggest thing with apathy, like I mentioned before, is there's no hope. They don't see a vision. And so they've closed off their connection to spirit. They don't see a vision, and how to move somebody out of that. It would be very challenging to say, well, let's create this new car. We'll come back to that car that we can attain within 6 or 8 months if we save money and get a job and we get payment and all of that. Somebody in a space of apathy, they can only see forward a few minutes, maybe a few hours. And so when we see somebody who is suicidal, they're not thinking beyond the hour, they're thinking right now, and they don't have hope right now. And so if we have people in our life, then we need to create. And how do you shift that? Again, we come back to our senses. We come from, creating a declaration that we are saying, we just come back to who we are. I am strong. I'm alive. I have possibility. There's possibility in my life. Go ahead.
And think about what the media is saying to us. Every commercial, oh, you got to be safe. You got to be, aware of how difficult things are right now and how we are not safe. And the big saying right now is be safe. Why? Because they're telling you you're not safe. Right. And that not feeling safe is creating an environment of, oh God, what am I doing wrong? We're having to look at ourselves, and hopefully they'll wake up to the fact that, nothing's really changed. This virus, we get hit with viruses that are more mortality, more morbidity, more problematic than this COVID has been. But because of the presentation of being unsafe, we're all in fear because we don't feel that safety factor. So they've gone down to the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of, being in safety. And, and now we're getting rid of the police departments that are supposed to make us feel safe.
Oh my God.
So they're moving us down, and they're already in control of the food, water, shelter, warmth, and literally, physiologically, we are feeling within our bodies not being safe, not knowing where we're going to get our food, not knowing where we're getting our water.
Shelter in place.
We have good friends from El Salvador. They said that whole country is so tied down, they can't even go out and grow their food. They can't go out and get their food, and it's created a huge problem in these third world countries because of the lockdown.
Here it is. Here's this Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And the very first and fundamental stage is that what you're saying, that basic food, water, shelter, and warmth. Because you can't reach the other levels if you don't have it's incremental. One has to build on the other. And if you get to a point where something causes you to suffer a loss in one of these lower areas, you do go back. It's an up and down, it's a sliding scale, in other words. So you're saying, Scott, that right now we're being engineered we're having food disruptions, we're having shelter problems, people are losing homes, and we, like as you said, we can't grow our own food. Warmth, are we able to keep ourselves protected from the elements and things of that nature? Safety, employment, assets. It's not. It's it's now that we're talking about it this way, it makes it so much more obvious that this is exactly how we're being attacked. Look, safety, like you just said, the police, our employment, the COVID, how many people had to stop working, assets. This is serious, folks.
They've moved us out, and they're not allowing us to go into those higher thoughts of helping each other. And I mean, they've moved us literally down into the bottom. I think of people in high rises. I get more calls from people in high rises because they can't get their food. They can't, they don't feel safe because they're in these huge buildings with thousands of other people, and they're told, oh, you can't connect with anybody. And here they are, all sequestered in these high rises, and they feel no safety. They feel like there's all these people that may infect them with the virus, and oh my God, it's just a living
Yeah.
nightmare.
Exactly. So what we're talking about, for those of you who are joining us, and I want to thank all of our live stream viewers who are just joining us. We're going back to this. How then do we increase the probability that we create serendipity in our life? Serendipity being luck, being being at the right place at the right time to achieve certain things. Isn't our, so vibrating in a certain frequency has to align with our belief system, because if we have a belief system that we can't do something, it's not going to happen. And if we do attract it, we'll probably lose it, right? So our beliefs, though, are, I think, probably one of our greatest challenges. Is that right, Vicki?
Yeah. So again, we'll come back down to a baseline
Okay.
of radio frequencies, and that every frequency is, let's just imagine wealth and poverty and a healthy relationship and abuse and all of those frequencies of fear and joy, all within our reach, but we're aligned to a certain frequency based on the frequency that we are. And so we anchor in of that energy that's floating around us. We anchor in and ride that train. And that's why people will be like masks and it's selfish and why don't you wear a mask? And these people are posting like my life is at risk every single time these people are not wearing a mask. And then the people without masks are like, you're giving up your free agency. You're not, there's no science behind that. There's zero science that proves that your point is true. We both have anchored into two very different frequencies that are around us. So if you'll pull up the Maslow's hierarchy again, I'll show. So here we are at the let's all agree that humanity is at this very base level. So what do we do about that? Right. Our food, water, shelter, warmth. We obviously want to make sure that I'm sorry, but we're going to add in toilet paper right now because that's part of those fulfill is one
Absolutely.
of those needs. How do we adjust that? If we come from a space of raising up to the top of the Maslow's hierarchy of need, we always have to build upon the foundation below it. Well, how do we do that with the food, water, shelter? Just know that the Maslow's hierarchy is not a single channel that we ride. It's not a ladder that we go up and down only one rung. It's continuing to evolve consistently. So if we get to that self-actualization, the next level, we've had that self-worth and accomplishments, we've made more money, we have better relationships, we come around again and we start buying organic food and we start shipping our food in that we can get we want grass-fed and non-GMO and rather than just fast food. And then we want our water to be, then we install the water filter so that we have pure water and we have a nicer home and we have better amenities. And so then we continue to raise up that ladder again. So how do we do it on our base level? We go to the level that's just before that. And again, with this one, it's self-actualization. What does that really mean? We connect to the divine. And so in order to get to the base level and to move up, we need to have that inner fulfillment by connecting to our divine self. That means how we engage in the world is we align our hearts to hope, we align our thoughts to the divine, we meditate, we calm our nervous system down, we don't anchor into an emotional engagement of something that takes us down a rabbit hole of crazy. We have to just get really, really clear about what we want to create and create a very steady baseline to work from. And again, that comes down to maintaining focus. I think this is a great time to bring up on our website, we just created this PDF. You can go on it and it's on the right-hand side. If you go to scottwerner.org and print this off, because we go into some great detail about how to make this personal accountability work for you. Because information can only go so far. I know we're just throwing out a lot of words and it's hard to keep up if you're just watching something and not taking any notes. But if you, so that personal accountability chart onto the right there, click on that personal weekly accountability chart, and that's a free download, a free PDF.
Wow.
And this is here. And then if you scroll down, there's instructions about how to use this and how we engage our different emotions, how do we engage the actions that we want to take, because we need to anchor into something. If we're not anchored into something that we want to create, then we become very scattered and we hold attention on the next thing that comes at us. And there's so much emotion around the fear of the numbers that we become very hyper agitated, and we just keep focusing on that and creating more of what we don't want. So I highly encourage, go on there and just print this off and start utilizing that. Now, the first thing that needs to come into awareness is, it talks about the primary intentions that we want to create. And this from one language is setting a goal. Just know we're always striving for something, either better health, better relationships, more money, better home. Each of us are striving for something. And some people on the spiritual thing says, well, I don't want to create a goal. Well, you're creating every minute of every day anyway. So why don't you anchor into something that aligns to the direction you want to go, if you're aware of it?
Sure.
And so as far as setting a goal, the next thing that I feel like we encounter more than anything is, well, I don't know what I want. That's a very common thing, especially if you are a mother and a wife, and that you're just like, well, all of my attention is on my family. I haven't even had time to figure out who I am. That's a very common narrative that I've sang that song way more than anybody I know. And it's just like, we think that we're doing this sacrificial lamb, that we're raising our children to be good people and we're there for our spouse. But then when we say, well, what is it you want to create? We anchor into, I don't know. I'm going to say that the goal is not the focus point. The focus point is the act of creation. The focus point is the journey through that experience, and it's the technique of manifesting and creation. It doesn't matter what you create. Our entire life, we're going to create something. So focus on the steps that it takes to create. And then when you are ready and whatever you want to create. So if I had a mother sitting in front of me saying, well, I don't know what I create, I don't know. Well, write down 10 things that somewhere has been in your consciousness, put it in a hat and draw one, and just choose it, because you want to anchor into something to create the intention, to do the movement, to have alignment with our thoughts, alignment with our emotions. It's a practice thing that when then the more you do that, the more you expand your awareness and the more that you can see who you are and where you want to go.
Wow.
Yeah,
Let me just support that.
I just want to add one thing in here.
Sure.
Anarchists equals Satanists do not want us to be creationists aligned with God. They want to bring us out of a belief in God into a belief that we are subject. We are battery packs feeding a collective power. No, the anarchists that were up there in Seattle, they literally had to have people bringing in food because they were destroying stuff and they didn't have time to even create food, water, shelter. They were destroying food, water, shelter. They're destroying something with no clue of what they are creating, because they're not creating, they're destroying.
Right. Well, I think they got the lesson of their life when they started to create that Chaz zone that had no police. And then next thing you know, people were just getting shot and there was no police. There was no EMS. Well, how's that working for you now?
Yeah, it was a
wake-up call.
They were raping, pillaging, causing war right here under our noses. And they had support from people feeling sorry for them. And it was like, what are you doing, folks?
Yeah.
You're uncreating and making it harder for those people living in those areas
Right.
to even have anything.
Well, we've talked about this before, and I'm going to screen share this, and this is something familiar to a lot of viewers. But let's not forget that our thoughts absolutely create physical structure in the world. And let's look at Dr. Emoto's experiment. We're going to show this right now. And I'm going to stop right there. That's amazing. I mean, we've seen it before, but again, this is thought creating physical form, as Dr. Emoto showed, that these thoughts in the water, when frozen, the ice crystals, obviously, as we can see, all had different form. So, you know, we have to remind ourselves of this. We have to remind ourselves and remember that this is where disease comes from. If you're in these you saw the you know, the ugly, you know, depictions of the words, you know, I hate you, or evil, you know, things of that nature. Just think of what we're creating in our body and why people feel sick and why some people never seem to get sick. And they usually have a really good attitude. Isn't that right, Scott?
Our bodies are big bags of water and bacteria, and our thoughts actually create good bacteria when we have good thoughts. I was having an infection in my mouth, and what I would do is I would focus love on these bacteria that were in my mouth and deteriorating anarchy bacteria that were degenerating, and I sent them love, and they became good bacteria, which were building the tissues rather than destroying. You think about this anarchy. Anarchy destroys, it causes death, destruction. We need to be creators, create good things, good bacteria, good water throughout our bodies, through our thoughts. I'll tell you, them putting us into fear is creating the pandemic.
Yep. The pandemic is a thought. The pandemic
It's
of
fear.
It's a frequency.
It's the anarchy. It's the social distancing. Let me tell you, none of that has been shown to be beneficial.
Humanity. It's benefiting the evil.
Exactly. Let me just screen share.
The anarchists.
Go
ahead.
Sorry. Every time I think you're pausing, I Forgive me, please. This is actually a researcher giving a description of what exactly Dr. Emoto was doing. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I'm just going to play a little bit of it because the implications of this are everything that we're talking about today in so many ways.
This next series of photographs are the work of Japanese researcher Mr. Masaru Emoto from his book, The Message from Water. Mr. Emoto's work provides factual evidence that human vibrational energy, thoughts, words, ideas, and music affect the molecular structure of water. Please remember that water comprises over 70% of a mature human body and covers the same amount on our planet. Water is the very source of all life. This photo shows the beautifully formed geometric design of the Yushi Spring water. This next photo is from the Shimanto River, the last clean spring in Japan. Notice the extraordinary geometric forms. The fact that the molecular structure of water can be affected by our consciousness, our intent, and our sounds is extremely important. This photo is from the Mount Cook Glacier in New Zealand. Mr. Emoto has been visually documenting these molecular changes in water by means of his photographic techniques. He freezes droplets of water, then examines them under a dark field microscope that has photographic capabilities. His work clearly demonstrates the diversity of the molecular structure of water and the effects of the environment upon the structure of the water. This photo is from the fountain in Lourdes, France. This photo is from contaminated water from the Yodo River in Japan. In this photo, we can compare the contaminated water with clean stream water. Look at the difference. Mr. Emoto decided to see what effects music would have upon the structure of water. He placed distilled water between two speakers for several hours while playing different music and then photographing the crystals that formed after the water was frozen. This photo is of water being exposed to Beethoven's Pastorale. This photo is the effect of Bach's air for the G string on the water. This photo is water exposed to Chopin's Farewell Song. This next photo is water being exposed and affected to music that was designed for healing. This photo is of water being exposed to the Kawachi folk dance. This photo shows the effect of heavy metal music upon the water. Here now we can compare the effects of healing versus heavy metal music and what happens to the water molecules. Mr. Emoto decided to see how thoughts and words affected the formation of untreated distilled water crystals by typing words onto paper and then taping this paper onto glass bottles overnight. This photo shows the effects of the words, "Thank you." This next photo shows the effects of the words love and appreciation. This photo shows the effects of the words, "You make me sick, I will kill you." And here we can compare the effects of thank you with the "you make me sick, I will kill you." Very, very different geometric forms being occurred through the intention.
Okay, I'm going to stop there because he says different geometric forms being created through the intention. And so this is everything that we're talking about today. This is the evidence of what you're saying. This is the scientific evidence of what you're saying is true. And if it wasn't for Dr. Emoto taking these photos and preserving in this and showing this to us, you know, would take us another 100,000 years of evolution to really get it. This is evidence, concrete evidence, that we are our thoughts. We think, therefore we are. And so this is exactly profound. This is exactly what you're talking about today, Vicki, isn't it?
Yes, and I'm really grateful that he brought up the music with the heavy metal music, because I wanted to point out in the first video and with this one, as we listen to that very soft, melodious sound, it calms our nervous system. I know that every person who watched this and listened could feel a little bit more peace washing through their body. There are so many things that we can do and to make our lives a more peaceful, harmonious experience and not get caught up in the narrative. And we have to really decide, where is it we want to go? We need to follow the train of what the intention is. Why does the media only show the number of cases and deaths rather than the number of people who were healed? Why do they only show tragedies instead of hope? Because it's the intention. They want to dominate through fear. Fear and manipulation are the two easiest ways to manipulate masses. And if you think that you're not one of the sheeple, then you have to take a really hard look of what you're paying attention to, how you're engaging with your fellow man. What are you doing about the mask? What are you buying into the narrative about the vaccinations? Why do you not care about Hillary Clinton's emails? And I think if we're paying more attention to a virus that has been proven over and over and over to have far less dire effects than what they're claiming, if that's taking our attention, and the fact that that there's so many things about the pedophilia rings and the child trafficking that has been exploded. People have this information and people don't want to look at it and they don't want to accept it. And I think that's where your priority is a virus that is going to come and go just like any other virus. And yet millions and millions of children have been damaged. Millions of children have been taken advantage of. And we call them the elite, but we should call them the Satanists that are causing humanity as our frequency as a whole to drop into fear. It's mind-boggling. We have to really look at where we want our attention.
You know, and right now they're trying to make pedophilia look like an alternative lifestyle.
Well, unfortunately,
come on, folks.
Yeah. Unfortunately, to these people, it is. But to try to normalize it and force us to accept it is, you know, I don't know, folks. If you fall for it, then I have no hope left for humanity.
It destroys the lives of human beings, young human beings who are very susceptible to adults abusing them. And it is an abuse of our children. And to make it an acceptable lifestyle, come on.
Well, just by adding it to the letter, I mean, I'm all for free agency to experience the life that you create for yourself, but not when you take over free agency of a child.
Yeah, let me tell you, the karmic debt that they're creating, abusing these children, is horrible.
Yep.
And it's going to follow their soul. And it does not create good things.
No. And so.
And it is not love. It's not anywhere close to love. It's a form of abuse. And most people who have been abused as children are the ones who follow that lifestyle.
Well,
for it.
Yeah, I mean, the saying that hurt people hurt people. And look, those are people who incarnated into life with greater challenges than the rest of us. So I'm not saying this with any judgment whatsoever.
Oh, no, no judgment.
No, there's no judgment. It's about some souls have been given greater challenges than other souls for whatever reason.
Well, and it's a distortion of the truth, which is we need to free these kids.
Yeah.
We don't need to confine them and put them in cages and abuse them
Yeah.
We need to free them.
And normalize the behavior.
Yeah, no, it's this normalization is because if we remember from the Bible that Satan will invert and desecrate anything that is godly, because of course Satan feels he's God and greater than God. So he takes whatever is godly, whatever is sacred to God, which is our children, our bonds, our trust, our relationships, and they will manipulate, invert, deceive, and that's their MO. And as long as we all realize that Satan is very present on this planet and that energy of Satan is on this planet, and there are those who are following the Church of Satan unbelievably, people who unfortunately fall um, into that, I guess, that apathy we were talking about, where they get hooked into it for whatever reason. It's a tough place to be. We're in a really tough place, but it's going to take work. We have to do the work, Vicki. And I think that, one of the greatest challenges is to have that sense of self-efficacy, to realize we can do this, we can change our lives. Scott and I talked about this last time. Louise Hay's book, You Can Heal Your Life, just an amazing book for me, transformed my life. And there's another one, Shakti Gawain, who has recently passed as well, creative visualization. I mean, it's got to be, you've got to have that so focused, as you're saying, Vicki, indelibly. That image has to be indelible in your mind, and that you focus on, and that every action you take every day is working towards that goal that you have, even if it's small. It's a small step. It's about having the focus. And you're absolutely right, because when we're not focused, and look, let's just go back to this for just 1 second, this Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I feel like I have to go back to this because it's exactly what we're talking about.
It's just basic.
See, if we do accomplish higher levels of actualization here into esteem and self-actualization and fulfillment, then we're going to be empowered. And they don't want empowered people. They don't want people who can think for themselves. They don't want people who can take action against them. That's why they're keeping people in the lower vibration, so that you're just struggling for your food and water and shelter. And this is really the science behind their method of control, domination, control, manipulation, and domination. So when they say, what is the Black Lives Matter? They're saying things like, they're accusing everybody of being racist when we're not racist. I mean, part of preserving our history is to make sure we don't repeat it. You know what I mean? So, I mean, there were points in time when we have, people who were, look at President Lincoln, abolishing slavery, Emancipation Proclamation, and they're trying to desecrate his memory. Where these people are stupid. They're dumb as a box of rocks if they're going to call people racist and then tear down that statue or desecrate it. So I'm really glad to see that the president did implement those,
well, and when you look at when Hitler took power, what happened? There was anarchy. They were burning the books. They were burning statues. They were removing statues, and they were putting up all of Hitler's stuff. And let me tell you, it's all about the economy. When they take away our ability even to have commerce, it's a basic law that you can't remove commerce. We have to have freedom of commerce. And they're taking that away from us through this whole COVID thing. And they're ruining the economy. They're ruining our ability to provide shelter, to provide a home, to provide our food, water. Our environment has become unsafe. And let me tell you, they are moving us out of our ability to even move up in through the hierarchy of needs.
I want to point out with Black Lives Matter, when we say this, I'm sure there are people who are emotionally charged about that, because they're engaging in an emotional narrative with that. Now, I'll say with this, why did you not post Black Lives Matter before COVID? Why, if you have a black neighbor or a black friend and you're white, and all of a sudden there was this, oh, we have to accentuate the energy. Why was it not important before? And we're like, well, it's always been important. Yes, they've been suppressed, and yes, we know all of the narrative. So we don't need to convince and promote. What we need to understand is what was the purpose of pushing this agenda right now. We have to go back to what was the agenda. The agenda was to cause separation. We can know the narrative all day long, and we can go into the history all day long, and we can say, if we don't stand up for this now, then nothing's going to change. No, nothing is going to change as long as we have separation. And all they're trying to do is emotionally engage. And if you think of what is the one aspect that can emotionally separate humanity in the United States, it's going to be us versus them, black versus white, because we have a narrative in our history that everybody can anchor into. And if you're going to anchor into the past, you're addicted to your past, and you're addicted to a past that doesn't even belong to you. Most of us were not alive when this was, well, none of us were alive when that was an issue. Yes, there's still slavery. Yes, there's still suppression. Yes, there's still inequality. Yes to all of that. But it's going to maintain if we're addicted to the history and we emotionally engage into the history of separation by promoting it. And if you're going to promote Black Lives Matter, you're causing separation. If you're going to promote an inner heart of love and come from within, go back to the whole Ho'oponopono and just anchor into love and acceptance of all, and that starts with self, then we can bleed our emotional state into a space of love and compassion, and we raise the consciousness and the frequency of ourselves. We raise the consciousness and the frequency of all beings, of all humanity. We have to do our part, and if you're engaging in anything that causes separation, then, for lack of better words, you're focused on the problem rather than the solution.
And let's not forget that they're all being paid to do. That's why.
Correct.
That's the only reason why it matters now after George Floyd is because they're getting paid. That's as low as you can get to sell out your country and to sell out the duty of protecting this country and protecting our values here in the United States of safety and prosperity. And if you work hard, you get you get out of life what you put into it in the United States. That's how it works here. So nothing's going to be handed. It's not going to be a socialist country. If you don't like it, you can go to plenty other socialist countries that exist. You don't have to stay here, but you're not going to change it. But the only reason they're doing this is because they're getting paid. So their love of money is the result of what we're seeing right now. Because if the people didn't take the money, they wouldn't do it. If they didn't take the money is so good. They live, sleep, and breathe. It's the love of money that creates all evil. Yeah. So, unfortunately,
but other people are anchoring into it when they see the post. That it's the you and me and everybody listening who isn't being paid for it. It's just, which narrative are you going to anchor? We anchor into things. We have attachments and emotional attachments. The problem is 99% of what we anchor into is emotional traumas of our past, and we can all relate to when there was injustice in our life. So that is an icon that is active in our energetic field. If you want to make something different, let's go back to creation. You better anchor into something different, and that means love. That means a higher vibrational state, because if you are in victim energy, we all have some element of victim in us. If you are in anger energy, we all have some history of anger. We've all had some history of betrayal. Everybody has that. So it's very, very easy to anchor into those emotional states. What isn't easy, and what we came to do, is anchor into compassion, anchor into love, anchor into a higher state of being internally, and we create an energy field that builds upon itself.
Yeah, but if we go into the anarchy, we can't move up at all.
Yeah.
And what they're creating right now, what the anarchists and the socialists and this conspiracy is creating is enslavement. We are all going to be enslaved. And if we feed into the anarchy, we feed into the pandemic, we feed into these lower vibratory states, we can't even move up on the hierarchy.
Yeah, and so some comments that are coming in are, well, if you don't work, you don't eat. But you know, what they're doing is criminal. They're acting as criminals. They are criminals. They are committing crimes that
Yeah,
we
they're
against the
making
laws that we have. So you don't have to be a criminal to make money. That's one way to do it, but you
well,
you
you're
know
destroying somebody else when you're taking
exactly
from some that isn't
right.
yours. You need to go out and create your own thing, not take somebody else's.
Yeah, but
That
the problem.
comment's very easy to understand if it's not your business being destroyed.
Well, that's it. I mean, you have to. You can't. You can't take away from somebody else just to give. So if you're committing a crime and there's like random murder going on now, it's just absolutely out of control. And the karma that these people are creating for themselves. I mean, do they really have any idea what they are creating that's going to return back to them? They weren't expecting to get arrested. You should see these people so indignant. I saw another one this morning of these two guys who were like sparring. Well, one guy was just not really responding, but this other guy was trying to provoke him, and then he came up to him and slapped him in the face. And the cops came, because the cops were standing right there. Cops came in and tried to arrest the guy while he had his other little BML buddies next to him, and they said to the guy, oh, the other guy hit him first. And you could see on the video that clearly wasn't the case. So it's kind of like we definitely create, we're going to manifest what we're putting our attention on and what we're focusing on. And what I was saying earlier about this idea of creating by focusing, by increasing our frequency, we're increasing the probability of creating serendipity in our life. Serendipity is just when you just seem to fall right into something coming to place. It's usually not random, right? And I just want to give a quick example, because I have to tell you that this is a great example of it. So I was driving across country with someone who every few hundred miles we'd take turns driving, right? Friend. And at half a tank, we'd always stop and get gas. Well, something happened in the middle of the desert. We totally, completely forgot to get gas. And next thing you know, we're in the middle of the desert in New Mexico, and there's no gas. And it has a little thing on the car that says, 20 miles to zero, to the tank being empty. And you're looking around, and it's so flat on I-40 going across the country, and you're like, there's no gas anywhere. Oh my God, are we going to make it? And I just knew there was no way we were going to get stuck on that highway. I knew it. I just had that feeling. I had that faith. I had that energy. And the friend I was with was really worried. He was not experiencing the same thing I was. And he was not looking forward to having to walk miles on the highway to go get gas in the heat. And then it started going, down and down and down as we drove more. It was 10 miles to zero. And you're looking around. It's like the scene from Cars in Radiator Valley, where there's nothing around but rock, and it really looked so completely bleak, I'm telling you. And then the next thing you know, we're going uphill, and it's sucking up the gas even more. And I'm telling you, 5 miles to zero, no gas station around. And I said, well, what if we take that road? He says, well, if we take that road, you don't know where that goes and how long you may go on there, and you'd be off the highway. And I said, okay, let's not take that road. We keep going. And we're going up this incline, and we got to 1 mile to zero. And let me tell you, within a half a mile, suddenly in the distance, a gas station appeared. We rolled in there on fumes at zero. We were basically on fumes. We were out of gas, but we made it. And I knew we were going to make it. But that's about serendipity, because all along I really knew. I just knew my guides were not going to let me break down in the desert. But I knew it. Like, I had this feeling of knowing that it was going to be okay. And there's that optimism. And that's what I think it means about creating that serendipity. If I had the wrong attitude, I can guarantee you we wouldn't have made it. But the attitude, and so I think in that example, I really created, that serendipity. And that's just an example of how you do it. No matter what it looks like, no matter how bleak things look, let me tell you, you're going to get down to that last 0.5 miles where you still have some gas to get you moving, and it's going to be there waiting for you. And it was. And we pulled in, and I told him, I said, see, I told you guys were not going to let us run out of gas in the middle of the desert. But it was both of our fault because we weren't paying attention to, the tank, and it was too late by the time we did. And but it was a very interesting experience, and it was really all about what you're talking about, was having that focus, having that high vibration. I was in a very high vibrational state at that point in time, and I just knew it, though. Like, it's like my energy would not let me think of any other possibility other than that we were going to make it, and we did. And it was really amazing. I didn't know how, but I knew we would. And we would let the universe was the one who provided that answer, and we did make it. And good thing we didn't choose to go off the road in fear. If we had driven into fear and gone off the road, because we were both thinking about it, but it was a good thing that there were two minds there, because you were, having someone to bounce it off. But that's what I'm talking about in terms of creating this serendipity. And it's really an amazing thing when you see it kind of manifest right in front of you, because you can see it. You can see it. And that's your validation that what you're doing is working. And I'm sure you see it in your workshops. When you see, after coaching people and helping people, I'm sure that you see the changes manifest. And that's such a beautiful thing, isn't it?
Yes, and I want to point out, we're not telling people or even making a claim that we manage our emotional state all of the time. I got emotionally charged yesterday, and I had a very strong conversation with somebody, but I didn't let it consume me. I noticed that 2 or 3 times after that experience, I realigned very, very quickly. I caught myself and realigned very quickly. And my suggestion is, again, we could talk all day about law of attraction. We can talk about manifestation. We can say there's 1,000 YouTube videos online. We could watch them all day, but until we apply them to our lives, it's not going to do anything. And so how do we take this information today to make our lives different today? Is one, print off that PDF. That takes 4 seconds of your time.
Exactly.
Spend a few moments and get very clear. What is it you want? I think all of us collectively want freedom. We want to get past this fear. We want to raise our vibration. We all collectively want a better world where we engage with love and compassion. Most of us, especially if they're watching your show, they definitely want to have a better purpose and a better United States, a better world. And so how do we do that? It starts with us first. For things to change, I must change. That's the bottom line. And so take a few moments today and just feel, what does it feel like to be free again? What does it feel to be able to travel without restrictions? What does it feel to walk into a restaurant? We're never going to take this for granted again, hopefully, that we can just walk in and grab something and walk back out, and we can see our friend in a parking lot and hug them. I still do it anyway, because I know where I stand, and I'm not going. And I want to say, it's not about refusing to be controlled. It's about refusing to give up our rights and refusing to buy into a narrative that is not true. So we need to align where we want to go, put our attention where we want to go, focus that attention as much as possible, carry it throughout the day, go to bed at night, feeling the sensation of freedom, feeling the sensation of abundance, of health, of prosperity, of love, having great relationships. But you have to be willing to let go of past conditioning, because we tend to defend our emotional traumas, and we will stand by them to reinforce them every time there's an emotional trigger. And until you want something different, big enough that you're willing to set down the weapon, you're going to keep maintaining that. And if you have an emotional charge, do what it takes to realign. Choose not to go numb. Choose not to be a victim, because if we look at the frequency, we're in a victim mentality. Whatever narrative you want to take, we're in a victim mentality, and a victim is waiting for somebody else to rescue them, AKA vaccinations, the WHO, that all of this, and you know, we're even waiting for our president to rescue us. All of us want that. We all want him to have the ability. So put your attention on prayer for him. Put energies around him to ask the masters to be with him. And for those who want to condemn things and focus on a comment that was made years ago, or the way that he picked up a glass of water, get over it. Just stop putting your attention on things that are not going to create the abundance and the love and the prosperity and the freedom that we want to create. Put your attention where you want to put your energy. And when you get out of line from your own desires, recalibrate. We all have that ability. So take the initiative to be a free agent and treat everyone with love and respect, but it has to come from within. You have to create the vibration within. And that starts with coming back into a meditative state. Even if it's 5 minutes, give yourself 5 minutes to align your energy centers, to align your mind and your heart. And you get all of those things in alignment. That's where the master becomes the creator. That's where we become the master creator, is when we align all of our energy centers, also known as chakras. We align our heart. That means we align our emotions, we align our mind, that we align our intentions. And when that frequency is all lined up, then we have the radio dial exactly where we want the music to come in.
Exactly.
Amen.
Amen, Scott. And it's tuning into the frequency.
Hallelujah.
But that's the whole point. The point is that they don't want us. What you're doing and what you're describing is how to separate yourself from the frequency matrix that they have enslaved us with. So what you're describing is really kind of, once you can do these things, then you start, as you're just describing, then you can start seeing, you see things differently. As Dr. Dwyer, we talked about this last time, Scott, Dr. Dwyer said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So what happens is, once you can master this and experience it, all of a sudden you see things with a very different point of view. You see the media and what they're doing and what they're pushing in a very different narrative. You see that they have a very different agenda than that it's an agenda too. You see that it's an agenda first, and then you see more specifically how they're trying to push the agenda and how they're trying to keep us enslaved in a low vibrational frequency. So this is so mind. This is so enriching. It's so enlightening. They don't want us enlightened, but our spirits are not going to be imprisoned and enslaved any longer. I mean, I think it's the silent majority is not going to remain silent much longer. We're waiting to see, and unfortunately, this stuff had to play out. QAnon talks about this, in the posts, that you can't. And there was also was it a famous philosopher whose name I don't recall, who said this: you can't explain there's some things you can't merely explain to people, that they must see and witness for themselves in order for them to understand it and to experience it and see it for themselves. So there's just some things that require that, and this is a time when we're, this is the time that we're in, where we need to be seen. Not us. There's some people who get it, but for those who are still showing that resistance to facts, resistance to truth, that's the virus that's really destroying this planet. If they're not going to release that resistance to the truth, then all I can say is I hope they have a different place to go than the rest of us. So,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think if we look through history and we see people who went through a very, very intense trial with either their health, or they lost a leg, or they lost a loved one, and they went through an enormous challenge, then years down the road, there's many people who will say, I thought that was the worst thing that ever happened to me, and it became the best thing that ever happened to me, because I woke up, my soul had an enormous amount of growth. I learned things I wouldn't have learned. I engaged in things I wouldn't have engaged before. I stood for something that I didn't know that I wanted to stand for. All of that caused the reason for that experience the challenge and the force that caused it was not nearly as strong as the force that we became. And we have that exact same opportunity. We know that transition and transformation 99% of the time is going to happen under trauma or pain. And we have an opportunity to do it through intention. We have this experience right now that we can look back and say, this was the worst experience that ever happened to humanity. Or we can take initiative and realize, why are we here on this planet at this time? We've all heard that there was something coming. And so many people are like, when is the change going to happen? When is the Y2K going to happen? Why did 9/11 happen? Why did all of this? And we have years and years of background where we knew some transformation was going to happen. Well, let's look at the stars right now. Let's look at astrology, 6 planets in retrograde, the way that this country, the way that the astrological alignment is right now is all focused on the North Node, which is your destiny. All of that is causing awareness. Pluto is showing his hand. All of those language people who are into astrology will understand. It's transformation that is happening in a big global level that is never in documented history before. We have an opportunity that if we could either look in the mirror and watch this experience through fear, through confinement, through limitation, or we can go, well, hot damn, this is the greatest experience and greatest opportunity I ever had in my life, because there is momentum and possibility, and I'm willing to start waking up.
You're talking astrology. You kind of piqued some interest there. Do you talk about astrology often?
All the time. I don't.
We have a master astrologist that keeps us aware of what's going on.
I like to.
Well, wow, you're going to have to come back and let's have a little conversation about this astrology. I learn more about you every time.
Well, my feeling about astrology is that, so many people, where most people are familiar with Mercury in retrograde, and we're like, oh shoot, Mercury's in retrograde, I can't travel and I can't sign documents. Anything in retrograde means it gives the appearance that it's moving backwards from the eye, but it means review and put a re in front of it all the time. And so what that means is when we have 6 planets in retrograde, never in documented history, that
right.
This
exactly.
is a big possibility of transformation. We're reviewing everything that we've done before. We're reviewing what's in front of us. We're looking at things are being revealed, and we can really run with this. Now, does that own who we are? No. Does it have an influence about our life? Yes. Let's just take it to the baseline. Again, the moon can move the ocean, right? So we know that there is celestial energy that has an impact on our life. And so we can use that to our advantage or be victims of it.
And for all you Christians out there, know that God created the universe, not just our planet. So everything is connected to God, including the universe. And the planets, even in their motion, are moving according to God and God's plan. So I know all the anarchists and people who don't believe in God, you're going, oh, this guy's nuts. But let me tell you, it's...
The anarchists are not on the GoldFish Report.
So no, they aren't.
No, but the point is that if the
fact checkers are out there, just know this is true.
They're not on here either. They're not in a vibrational match.
Right, but if the point is that if you know that the energies that influence us, including the moon and the planet, if you understand them, then you understand their influence on us, then you know that if you're going to plan something, you want to go at a time, you want to do it at a time when the energy is working for us. So it's easier for us to do it rather than when it's again, the energies are working against us. So it's kind of like, why would you you want to go down the water slide on a raft, not, on your pants. Yeah. So it's kind of like you get resistance because it's, the energies are just not working with you. So we can continue to talk about this. I can't wait to have you come on and talk about astrology, because it does. And even Nancy Reagan, former First Lady Nancy Reagan, had an astrologer and almost did nothing without astrologer. So there's a reason why. I think it's something that begs us to look into a little bit more. And you know, however you want it to play a role in your life, whether you do or don't, it's strictly up to you, as you said, free will. But I think it's something that that a lot of people should understand, because it does impact our life. So it's not, and like I said, you can plan things at a time. This is what the globalists do. They do it all the time. They use it. Full moons, new moons. I mean, that's why they have their satanic rituals on these days, because they know that the energy will facilitate whatever they're doing, whether positive or negative. So why can't we also use it to our advantage, things of that nature? So
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I will point out two things. Jupiter is forcing Pluto to play his hand. That means things are being revealed, and it's going to be for the benefit of humanity. So watch big reveals in the next 6 months. We're all about things that have been hidden are being revealed, and we're in a big space of transformation and creation. There's a lot of intensity with Mars and all of these different things that are building possibility for creation. So this is a perfect time to have this conversation. We all know that we want the deep state to be revealed. We want the evil to be removed. We want what has been holding humanity in confinement to be eliminated. And we want to be the creators of our life. So this is the ideal time. If there ever was one, today is the day. This is the month. This is the year. 2020 is always perfect hindsight. We will look back here at 2020 and say, wow, there was a lot of possibility, and now I see purpose in all of it.
Well, I hope you'll come back to do another Food for the Soul and talk about astrology. Would you do that?
Well, I can. I don't claim to be an expert in any way. I just read and listen and pay attention.
Maybe we could have Dorothy be with you.
Well, I'm very fascinated about every element that shows up on the planet, and I'm as definite an eternal student for sure.
Yeah, where's my tarot card deck? Hold on a second. I got like 5 of them. Okay, so no, it's very, very interesting, and I think that that we shouldn't exclude it. We know that the powers that be utilize these exclusively. They do, because there's a reason that you can access that information field around you if you allow it. So without going off on another, boy, I can't wait to get into that. And we'll definitely talk about that at some point in the future. But I want to thank you both very much for this beautiful message. And I really encourage everybody to listen to this a couple times, because there's a lot of information in it. And, whenever somebody's at the precipice of making major changes in their life, it's a matter of reprogramming. It's a matter of you're ready. And you're able to open and be receptive to a new message, something to alter, to not completely change, because we can't do it like that. It just doesn't work. It's not sustainable. But it's about incorporating, assimilating new things into our life, which change who we are. Not completely, but they make us into more evolved people. So it's wonderful to assimilate a new information, but it's not, it doesn't happen overnight. So definitely I suggest rereading this. Go to the website, Dr. Werner's website, check it out, and print out that chart that Vicki was telling us about, and use it. When anyone's on a path of self-help, there's numerous resources you can go to. But what's really helpful, what I always found, was that somebody said something a certain way. I never looked at it that way before. And that was it. That was the light bulb moment. And we're hoping that we provide some of those light bulb moments for you. And if you feel like you need to have a coach, you have 2 of the best people right here who could be that coach and be helpful for you. And I would definitely start on the website and check out what they have, and start from there. But I think the idea is to not fall within the matrix that's supporting the negative vibrations on the planet. We want to support the positive affirmations. This is the apocalypse, as you're saying, the great unveiling of what has been hidden. So not a coincidence that all these planets are in retrograde at the same time, for this great awakening. And that's why you're seeing lots of things coming out in the news. So it definitely is a major time. And again, if the planets are aligning to have this review, this reveal, this, you know, taking a look again, another look at what, you know, your life or some circumstance or some decision or whatever circumstances there are. It's definitely a time to utilize the opportunity to do that. And since if you know that that's what the energies are doing, then you can capitalize on that and make, you can clear out some things from the past. That's why they say never to start anything new in a retrograde, because isn't that right?
Well, correct. It just takes longer to come to fruition. Because so yeah, especially when Mercury's in retrograde, you don't want to sign things. And appliances I think a lot of us are like, we've had water issues, appliance issues, computer issues, internet issues, things. And another thing is our history tends to come up. Lately, I think people can relate that they've had issues that they thought they had healed from, or that concerns that they thought they were over, all of a sudden start showing up again. And it gives us an opportunity. I think these are checking points. When that kind of thing happens, it's a checking point to not look at the experience, but look how you handle it differently to show a level of evolution. It's just a way that we can evolve and have a reference point that who we are. Once we know better, we do better. I think there's so many things that I look at, and, you know, we actually thought one day that Disney was a good thing, and now we don't. And now, you know, we thought that it was to be part of the Hollywood elite was a good thing, and now we don't. We thought power and money was a good thing. Well, power over others, not. So I think there's a lot of people who were former Democrats that were like, I'm a recovering Democrat. I thought that's what I wanted. Recovery. Now I know better. And now I can, you know, I'll so much stand for truth, and so much stand behind the man that's there to really make an impact on our planet, and pray for him and protect him. And we all have to do that right now.
Well, Scott, I want to thank you both again so much. And if you wouldn't mind, would you please give us a blessing to wrap up this
absolutely
incredibly inspirational report today. Thank you.
Absolutely. In the name of the Almighty I am that I am, the creator of the universe and of all organization of the universe, and by direction of the great divine director, we give all of you who hear our voices a blessing of comfort and of joy and of peace. We desire and we bless you with the peace that comes from knowing that God is in charge, and the organization of God will bring peace to our planet. We bless you to understand that the earth is here to serve us, and it's our thoughts, our emotions, our mental telepathy that brings about all that is around us. And we need to be focusing on the love of God. We need to focus on the organization of God to bring all the food, all the water, all the desires of our heart to us. The purification of the water and food, the purification of the planet is in our thoughts. And those thoughts are creating the waters, vibration of the waters. And they will affect everything, not only the food, the water, and the peace of our planet, but our thoughts are creating our ascension, creating our movement into the higher, more peaceful realm. We bless you that you will stay in those peaceful thoughts, those blissful thoughts, those compassionate thoughts. We bless you that you will move into the Christ consciousness of loving all around you. And this will create the love that we actually need here on the planet at this time. We bless you that you will use your powers of creation to create the goodness, the kindness, the sharing, the selflessness of the ascension. We bless you that you will come to a knowledge of the peace that never stops, never ceases. And we bless you that you will have this in your minds and hearts and bodies, and bless you with the vibration of love. In the name of the Almighty, I am that I am, all the ascended beings, the angels, the archangels, and the Elohim, we bless you with this energy. So be it. So it is.
So be it. So it is. So thank you again for joining us, Scott and Vicki. It's been such a pleasure. And to all of our viewers, thank you for joining us. Folks, focus on increasing the probability of reaching serendipity. And there you have it. So have a wonderful week. We'll be back Saturday night with our POTUS report, our second week. I would say it's not midweek, but it's like the end of the week. The weekend POTUS report is what I should call it. Sorry. And we'll see Scott and Vicki again in the future, I'm sure, very soon. Thank you again for joining us. And this concludes this edition of the GoldFish Report.